distinguished colleagues on the dais that was here, Professor Abhijit Mitra, Dr. Sri Nagesh and Professor Pradeep Kumar, distinguished invitees, dear friends, students, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very special occasion to come and share some of our experiences that we have gone through in the past on this very pointed subject of housing. As you have noticed here at the beginning of the evening's program, that housing is one of the fundamental tenets that every human being is looking for in making the life comfortable and happy. So we are talking on a subject that is very dear to every human being on this earth. We are also very keen that we take away something special from here this evening. So the pressure is immense on me. I have always felt this, that going to a class and going to a lecture in a public place, both are equally stressful, and I hope I'll come out of this with clarity. I hope I'll be able to share with you the reality of the country that we are in and the housing that we are having to face in the days ahead. One thing nice that has happened is that today that particular video did all that which I did not put on my presentation, which is the housing typology. That I thought was typically an architect's presentation, and since I'm an engineer, I should do more straight lines and regular curves rather than artistic form that usual architects would go for. So this is not the first jab. This is just the first jab, and many more jabs are coming for architects. So those of you who are architects in this room, brace up. We're looking for a fun evening here. The second thing I want to say is that the country is very big, and the various cultural forms that exist in the country which got transformed has led to over 800 variations of houses across the country. And engineers like us, we classify these houses based on structural behavior, and that comes to about 18, 20 forms that we have identified so far in the Indian housing. We don't need. What everybody tells me is that, nahi bhaiya, ये बत्तियों से रोशनी डालने वाली बात नहीं है, शब्दों की तालमेल है यहाँ पे. What is important, and everybody tells me this, is that when you wear clothes, it must appeal to the person in front of you. Of course, you must be comfortable. When you eat food, it must suit your body. Of course, it must be offered by the other person suitably, meaning if you're a vegetarian, you should get vegetarian food, even though you can eat any other food and still survive, but the other person must offer suitable food also to you, or the chosen food for you. But this is one item, housing, which you will have to make not based on your dream, your desire, or the looks and so on, but only on one consideration, that is, it must match with the nature around that particular region where that house is built. If it doesn't meet that, rest, it has no value and has no meaning. The first fundamental requirement is that it must suit the nature, the weather conditions, the temperature conditions, the pressure conditions, the wind conditions, the hazard conditions and so on. So it must be suitable to that place. And the second one, it must be made with materials that exist in that place. So there are two very powerful requirements before the looks and the beauty of anything that you want to talk about a house. This is where I think grand departures have been made, and that is why we are here this evening, to understand where we made those departures. I must also mention here that safety, sustainability or durability, people use that word very loosely, exchangeably, and finally affordability. I hope you have seen the sequence of these three choices. First is safety. Second is sustainability or the durability of that house, and only then you talk about the affordability of the house. But today, almost every discussion, the horse is not in front of the cart, but it's the cart that is in front of the horse. So this is where I want to say that you may spend the lowest amount of money, but that will not have any respect or value, because tomorrow you will be under the rubble when that house comes down on you. Right? So money has no meaning if there is no life. So we have to now apportion highest respect and highest dignity to life in this country and stop that original or earlier practice where the cheapest commodity in India is life. And I will substantiate this over time as I show you these images that we have collected in the last couple of decades. The first statement I want to make is today's evening is an invitation to serve the people of India. We have to help the people of India. And when I say we, this is a technical gathering here. I see very few, maybe there's a young friend of mine. Is he here? No. He's sitting in the back. There's a young friend of mine who's yet to get a diploma or a degree, but I'm looking for Ganesh. Ganesh is here? No? Ganesh is left, okay. He's about 3-4 feet from the ground, so he doesn't know the meaning of all this technical, non-technical, but he does share some powerful thoughts on housing. I must mention here that do recognize that if you are in this room here, you are here with a purpose, and when you go out of this room, you also have a lot of work to do as you walk out from this room. As I speak here today, I'm not here pointing out fingers at anybody about the past conduct or the way we have conducted ourselves as a nation, but this discussion, we have to use pointed words and names, because only then we can correct ourselves. If we speak in generalities, we will not make any progress in this country. Today we will share with you three aspects: the status of housing in India, the trends of housing in India, the matter of sustainability, and then finally the way forward. What we did so far is the first part of it, the status of housing. And I must mention here that today, as we are speaking, the count is above 305 million houses already built in the country. And out of these 305 million houses, the reinforced concrete is about 11 million, accounting for about 3.6% of the housing. And the rest of it is the informal construction that typical Indian builds by himself or by herself. On limited occasions, there is intervention of a contractor, and even that contractor doesn't have either a BTech in civil engineering or an architecture degree, but on most occasions has a BCom or a PhD in chemistry or something like that. I'm saying this because in this very city there are multi-story buildings built by a PhD graduate with chemistry specialization. We are now looking at how many engineers or architects are there who participated in the development of this 305 million houses. There are 80% of the architects who are appreciating what has been built, and in a lifetime they will carve out 5, 6, 10, 12 beautiful houses for the rich, and that is one section of architects. Another section of architects are who are tirelessly sitting with villagers and trying to design houses and housing typologies that will suit their requirement. But the norm of an architect is not involved at these two ends, but is in the middle, who is generally conducting papers to go back and forth from one office to another, but not making a major difference as far as fundamental thinking is concerned. This is the summary of today's title that we have, that people in India build their own houses. This is a father and daughter. The father and daughter have collected back the stones that fell down, the bricks that fell down when the earthquake took place, and with the same stones, they are building it by the same technology they knew. They have not made any difference. So be assured that the next time around, it will fall down again And if both of them survive, then they will build it again by their own hands. That is how helplessly India is standing today, and that is where all of us who are technical must watch our souls once more as to why we are not part of that business of helping them build their houses. Building a house is not a non-technical item. It is a specialized activity, and specialized knowledge has to go in, and the people of India today don't have the specialized knowledge provided to them. When you look at these houses, they give you signs on a daily basis. This picture is not because the earthquake has shaken this building, but it is because over time the walls are trying to fall apart from each other. Okay? Buildings are like human beings. Buildings speak, but when they speak, no voice comes out. And that is why we human beings who are used to a certain decibel level don't seem to be hearing what they are speaking, because our eyes are shut and our hearts are closed. This is where we need to do a different kind of an engineering, and that is why you need to walk in to the interior of India and look at India with more love, care, affection and respect. Urban areas is not any different. This is contractor built houses. And if you thought that contractors do a better job, then be sure that that's not true either. In summary, it seems that most of the rural areas have only unreinforced masonry houses made of stone or brick. This is across India. And they are very vulnerable to the natural hazards, very vulnerable. Limited number of houses are built carefully and have traditional knowledge embedded in them, and only those do survive during the extreme conditions of wind, fire, earthquake or any other hazard that you're looking at. What is also important for you to recognize is that today the trends are fast changing, and I will bring that in the next section of our discussion. This is typically a non-exaggerated direct view of what would happen to a masonry house built by stone over stone, brick over brick when the shaking comes at that region. This is not just one building falling down, this is a whole colony falling down. In 1993, there were 9,000 people who were declared dead, and we didn't have time or even the logistics to be able to handle 9,000 dead bodies. So we dug a big pit 50 meters diameter and took a bulldozer and dozed away dead bodies into that. If anybody wants to walk with me, I would like to show you that place in the village of Killari. And history will be a testimony to this act of ours. We are not helping the people of India, because the lower story was very weak and the upper story is very strong, but that is not going to be taken care of by the earthquake, because the lower story is the one that has to carry the upper story also, doesn't have the capability. So why is it that we cannot tell our people that before you build a stronger upper story, that you must strengthen your lower story? Why is it that we are staying away from the people of India? Why is it that some of us still continue to fool ourselves, forget about the people of India? This is a masonry unit which tells you that all the engineering that is required is there in visual form, which means you need through stones every 2 feet. Yes, we have through stones. Which means you need bands at all the levels. Yes, you have at all the levels. But be sure that these are all just painted and they were not built at all. There is no through stone and there is no band anywhere in that picture. And when the earthquake comes, of course, the earthquake knows better, and so it is coming down there, and you can see that you don't need any other proof. This is what I would like to say, that please do remember that the ultimate test of any structure is time. If it can stand over time, then you know you've been a good engineer, you've been an honest engineer or an architect in your life. There are changing dimensions of the society. Today, we are by law prohibited from using wood. But I can tell you that there are large number of regions, especially the Himalayan region and the entire belt of about 2,500 kilometers starting from the northwest corner to the northeast corner, that we cannot build houses if you don't use wood. So to have a CPWD document which says from now on you'll not build any of those and you'll build only brick masonry with reinforced concrete slab is actually a very unfortunate statement that has been codified into a government office order or a memorandum. This is also a picture that tells you that ultimately to prevent this building from falling down, you need a piece of wood. Right? So the bottom lines are always clear. What can support the house is actually a wood piece, and that tells you immensely that somewhere in the traditional knowledge we have not spent time to understand exactly what is suitable for the people in that region, for the houses that have to be built in that region. When you look at requirements, it's a major challenge. For example, if you are in a hilly region, you need a house that can sit on the slopes. That is one. The slope has to be safe. The building has to be safe. In the lower story, when the slopes are very steep, you can't get a very tall story there. So you need to have a story which can fit the animal form, and so the lower story is animals and the upper story is the human being's residence. And you need to design this. Some of you will say, no, the lower story is short, the upper story is tall, so stiffness is more in the lower story, upper story stiffness is high, and all the calculations tell you that you will get more damage in the lower story. Yes, that's the way it is. Design it properly. Do everything that you have to make sure that after the earthquake it will stand there. You will also notice that the sizing of the roof, the functionality of usage, everything is predefined by the villagers over the years. And you need to honor that and match that one-to-one. So many a time you don't have that greenfield project where you have to do things, start from scratch. Nope. In most housing in the interior India, you will have to follow the cultural traditions and bring the same house to order and bring it into safety. So the architect has very little to do there. The engineer has to really work in full force. When the extreme hazards are on you, only the engineer can really save you, not the architect. Architect has a lot to take away from the built houses and then perpetrate that in time ahead based on traditional knowledge. But when you look at the third challenge that exists is the materials. Himalayas, as you walk from end to end, you will see all variety of stone. And in some regions you'll get very soft stone and in small sizes. And in some region you'll get heavy stone and in large sizes. Depends on where you are. In some cases you will get big size stone pieces, very light and very porous and very weak also. So huge amount of challenge is posed to the engineer when he or she is building a house in the Himalayan region. This house, as you can see, is made out of rubble, absolute rubble, but great geometry, excellent piece of masonry. Great geometry, excellent piece of masonry. It will not last 10 seconds in the next earthquake. Right? Beauty is not the duty. There's more to life than just beauty. What we need to recognize that in every house form that exists today, that 1820 basic typologies and 800 odd sub-typologies, you need to recognize that most of them have life-threatening features in them. And those that don't have life-threatening features are actually the traditional construction. So if you really want to watch and you really want to help the people of India, you have to give that life to be protected through your art of either architecture or of engineering given to them in an explicit way, in a safe way. After life is protected is when you will talk about economics or the cost involvements in terms of repair or rehabilitation and so on. But if life is not protected, don't ever talk about monies here. I'm just wondering if you will send your child to go to school in this 4-story building where about 500 school children are there and in a seismic zone 5. It's a masonry house. It's a masonry structure. Okay? You may or may not have gotten a degree in civil engineering. You may or may not have gotten a degree in architecture. But you'll definitely put your hand on your heart and say, this is not going to survive in the next earthquake. Why? Too many openings, too many holes. There's very little wall left. Much of it is window. Right? These are the modern departures we have made to constructions in extremely challenging conditions. While I say all this, I will also show you pictures of the traditional construction. Everybody knows in that Himalayan region that when shaking happens, the bricks and the stones would want to go away from each other. The only thing that will hold them together is wood. And the only thing that will hold them together is wood that is triangulated, that is closed into triangles. And there is great carpentry work in that region that you can see and learn from. The triangulated form you can see in the upper story particularly. You would say, what? No, no, no. In the lower story, the triangulation should be there. I must mention here that for small shaking, it will be the upper story that will give up first, and for heavy shaking, you will see that the lower story, if the building has to survive, it has to be having triangulated systems in the lower story also, only then it will survive. So this example is a partial conversion of traditional knowledge into practice. Yet another example in the same Himalayan region, far away, another 2,000 kilometers east of where we saw the previous picture, tells you that constructions have to be light, and they have to be, this time they don't use triangulated, but they say framed into each other. So the woodwork is not triangulated, but framed into a box system, and often into smaller box sizes of 2 feet by 2 feet. That is what they like most, and that is what they do all the time. They take 4 by 4 wood, 4 inches by 4 inches wood runners, and then create this rectangular spaces, and again the vertical goes through, horizontals are connected through excellent carpentry. And then the spaces in between are filled with very light material. Over time, it has been changed from traditional ikra to asbestos to I would say cemented ikra surfaces and so on. Many varieties. And in the recent times, I've also seen somebody say, no, 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 remove all this. I want bricks in between those frames. Excellent. They are learning to match their requirement. But have we tested any of this housing form in this country even once in prototype size? Even once in prototype size. That is the question that you'll have to answer. We have 305 million houses built, 1.27 billion people put under these houses. Have we tested any of this? Is there one test facility in the country which tests a full-scale house as it is built? You can understand our priorities have not been housing so far. This country has not addressed housing in a formal way. That was the rural story. Let's look at the urban India. You like urban India? Most of the constructions are reinforced concrete in urban India. And they are not made of stone or brick, but they are filled with either stone or brick. Infilled with stone or brick. That is what it is. What is also embarrassing is that even these fall down at very small shaking. That is the most embarrassing thing, because a common man who is always emulating the rich man, and the rich man is building this house, and the common man doesn't know that the rich man is going to die also under these houses. And that is where we have misled each other in this country. This there is a special category of buildings that have come, and I will share with you these special category of buildings, which are basically multi-story buildings with parking lot underneath it. This parking lot is the solution of the architects of India who successfully, I would say, quote unquote, successfully sold it to the governments across the country, and everybody bought it, saying that we have solved the parking problem of the country, streets are going to be empty. Little did they forget that both husband and wife will work, and now each household will have 3 cars, not 1 car, not 1 scooter, not 2 cycles, but 3 cars, and so still there are cars on the road now. So we really haven't solved the problem. This is the picture you can take of any city in this country and say this is the picture of that city. Okay, you just have to look for a high water tank, or you have to look for a television tower, go on top of it and try shooting any picture. All pictures will look like this, and you can also put your name on that picture. I took this picture. Very good. But this is the picture of Ahmedabad. And this is the picture of Ahmedabad in the just one decade of 90 to 2000. In just one decade, they managed to add 25,000 5-story buildings and 1,500 11-story buildings. They had nothing in between. It's all boys or girls. All are 5 stories or 11 stories. No confusion, great combination. Now I want you to get a little closer to all this. Take a closer look at all these, and you don't need me again, and you don't need your degrees again. Put your hand on your heart and just tell me whether those columns will take that building standing on top of it. And if you want to know the size of the column, I will tell you that size of the column is from here to here. And that is called 9 inches. Right? You don't need degrees in this country. What you require is common sense to determine whether the structure is vulnerable or not. I'll tell you, every time you go to any seminar, we'll talk about rapid visual assessment or vulnerability assessment of buildings. You're wasting your youth on that seminar. Why? Because you don't need to do calculations to show that this is unsafe. Right? Anybody who is building a multi-story building with parking lot, and if they want to get your consultancy on this, take it. Don't visit that site. Just write unsafe and take all the money that you have to and send the report in just one word, unsafe. Because if you really do calculations as per Indian standard, not one building can be built the way it has been built today, 9-inch columns with 18 inches on the other side and 40 mm cover, and then there is this 8 mm stirrup on either side, and then there is this 20 mm bar in between or 16 mm bar in between. Impossible. Impossible to build anything more than 1 story to stand the test of earthquake shaking. In seismic zone 3. If you go to 4 and 5, you will embarrass yourself. So this is called Windows 2014. Right? In 2014, if you open a window, you will see more windows. This is called Windows 2014. This is before you load that software onto your computer, and this is after you load the software onto your computer. I'm having to make it very light for you because I want you to carry this home, that this is the unfortunate plight of our cities that we are building today. When people say concrete jungles, you don't seem to understand. But this picture will tell you indeed it is a concrete jungle. The only thing that has happened is when those buildings fell down and the bulldozers came and ran it down, somebody came and picked away all the steel from here. That's all. That is all that has happened. No other change has happened to the picture. They have not altered it in any way. They just took away the steel because it's valuable. Not to talk about the dead bodies that are under this. So that's the time bomb of India, the 9-inch time bomb of India. And this is going to happen to every town. I must mention here that if your son or daughter is learning how to drive a car, and instead of pushing the forward gear, presses the reverse gear and it goes on to this 9-inch column, be sure it's over. Not just for you, for the whole building it is over, because it's not going to have any redundancy. Buildings don't have any redundancy the way they are being built today. 1 column removed, the building is done. Be sure. Now we have given architectural awards for such buildings. And this is, Professor Mitra is here. This is the pride of IIT Kanpur. This is our library building. 1963, architectural masterpiece of the nation and decorated with a national award, right? But you know that this will not last too long. We're waiting for that big one, and Professor Nagesh, Dr. Nagesh just mentioned that in that region north of Kanpur, Himalayas have not given up yet, and if they do, then it would be Mag 8 or more, right? So if that's the story, then this will be on the floor. And let's see. 10 lakh people will die, dead bodies 10 lakh. See, I told you 10,000 was a challenge in Killari and 10 lakhs. That's 2 zeros more. Now that's what will happen. Those of you who are not focusing your attention on that, do that once more and see what exactly has happened. The top block remains as it is. All the eggs are in one basket. Your wallet is sitting on your back pocket and you're in the Bombay local train. Right? Everything depends on the ground story columns, the 9-inch columns, and if you have not managed to design them properly, it is over. It is over. And if you don't believe me that this is a cartoon, believe this. This is originally a 5-story building, became 4, and then you got buy one, get one free. Why? Do you know that all these buildings have only one drawing, structural drawing for construction? And in that drawing, the bars of all the floors will be lapped at the same location. Do you know that? Do you know that the column reinforcement is given in just a tabular form? That size of the column, how many vertical bars and what are the stirrups? Everything is in one sheet. That was made way back in 1972 by somebody in India. And then later it got WikiLeaks into every town, and then people changed the title block and liberally used it everywhere. So it's a single drawing in the whole nation that is going rounds, and that is what is being used to create the entire set of buildings in this country. I'll give you a quick example. We have Ahmedabad city today has 60,000 buildings, open ground story, right? Hyderabad is hitting somewhere around 80,000. Delhi has 1,25,000. Bombay has 2 lakh. Madras is 60,000, coming close to Hyderabad. There's competition going on here, right? Why? Because there's a mass exodus of people from the villages to the cities. And the reversal is almost going to be very dangerous, that today we have 70% in the village and 30% in urban, and in about 15-20 years from today, 2032, they're expecting that it will just flip, that India will get vacated in the villages and will come to the urban centers. This is about 300, yeah, I must mention here, this is about 225 kilometers away from the epicenter of the earthquake in an intensity zone of 7, and reinforced concrete buildings should not fall down at intensity 7, they should fall down at intensity 9 or 10. So actually something is wrong with the way we are building our constructions, or making our constructions. This is a picture to just tell you what you should do in an earthquake. If there's an earthquake now, of course you can't do anything, because you can't go under the chair. Traditionally, you're supposed to go under the table if you have one in your office, and that's the reason why you have to go, because if the slab comes down on you, and it will, because the column is only 9 inches, I just told you, it will come down on you, and when it does, you will be saved under it. But in this particular event, 39 school children could not go down in time under their chairs, under their tables, and so they lost their lives. Right? This is a school building.